Alrighty. And away we go. Looks like we're fixing to get started, boys and girls. All right. Welcome to the Unframe of Mind show, where we have uncomfortable conversations without a condom. We are working on finding us a good live stream to watch the show on at the moment, so bear with me as we track down what could be a good live stream to watch this thing on. So if you're joining me today, you're ready to watch this show. Donald Trump is fixing to address the nation on the border wall, immigration, border security, the government shutdown, I'm sure. Let's see what he has to say. Right now I'm just looking for a good stream to watch it on, so we might start. Ooh, all right, here we go. Start with this one right here. Make sure I got plenty of volume. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to be hearing anything on this or not, but we will find out here shortly. I see a flag a-flying. All is quiet. So, I would be interested to find out what in the world y'all think about this border wall debate that's been going on. See Swamp Cleaner in the comments section down yonder. Volume is low. Volume's low. Hold on. Thank you, sir. Let's see if I can get that up a little bit. Make sure this sounds good. Just holler at me if things sound better or worse or what. Let me move some shit. Wasn't expecting to be down this low. All right. All right. Is that any better? Does that sound any better? Hello? Hello? All right. Tell me if that sounds better. All right. I need to get this over here. I can see what I'm doing. Alrighty. Volume's low. That's better. All right, cool. Now, I just want to make sure I see people starting to roll in just a little bit. I may have some differing opinions about this wall, so just bear with me, because I can kind of see both sides of this whole political divide, this whole political debate. It's kind of ridiculous. If you ask me, the whole thing's kind of silly, but it's also serious at the same time, so it's quite the dichotomy, if you will. Let me get out of some of these other posts here. We're rocking and rolling about 4 minutes before they go live. I really hope I've got a decent stream here we can watch. We're about to find out. Don't want to know how to watch it. Think I've already figured it out. All right. Let's see here. I know it's NBC, but it'll do. Just bear with me. Build it high. I've heard of that meme or something that THICC. I don't know what the hell that means, but maybe I'm just not down with the web culture nowadays. Maybe that's what it is. But at any rate, I'm kind of expecting to see. I don't know what to expect exactly, but I'm kind of expecting to see this guy, Donald Trump here, double down on the shutdown, on that kind of thing. Waiting to see what he's going to actually say about the border security. I know this has been a huge issue in the news. I kind of feel like this is a thing that it's going to be the thing that makes or breaks his next possible re-election. That's funny. I'm sitting here watching on the live stream. If you guys can see the thumbs up, thumbs down, there's already 562 likes and 348 downs. Like, people are just clicking on just because of the title and clicking buttons. Like, come on, guys. At least hear what the guy's got to say. But at any rate, I have a feeling that if he does not get any kind of funding for this border wall, we're going to see a situation where Donald Trump's not going to be able to be elected this next time around, especially if, added on top of that, the economy continues to plummet like it is. I know everybody says the economy is like super good right now, but if you're actually paying attention, it's really not. It's really not going that well. All right. So if you guys are joining me now, you're watching the Unframe of Mind show where we have uncomfortable conversations without a condom. And I appreciate you joining me today. Okay, I'm assuming, Swamp Cleaner, that when you say thumbs up, I think you meant you thumbs up my video, which I greatly appreciate that. If you can share this out so more people can watch, that would be greatly appreciated as well. Got about 2 more minutes to go before the show. And I'll try to explain what's going on best I can, and I'll try to tell you kind of my thoughts on it as well. I'm not really for the wall the more I think about it, but I'll explain that as we go. See where we're at. I just want to make sure we have a good stream. Got about 1 minute to go before we go live. Thanks for joining. How y'all doing? Economy's good. Stock market isn't doing too well. But that's because big tech is tanking, says the Swamp Cleaner. Yeah, I don't know. I think there's a lot of indicators suggesting that you may not be so correct. I think Donald Trump kind of rode the wave of the hope of his election, and that's about the best we could do. Economy's going to tank regardless. Let's just put that right out front. It's going to tank regardless because we've been moving that way. We're in impossible amounts of debt. There's no efforts to try to pull back on it. Our dollar is going to crash, and we're going to hit a stagnant economy here pretty soon. I think the term they use is stagflation. That's going to be interesting. It's just a matter of how fast we hit that wall. That's really the only question at this point, because it's going to happen. I mean, it's mathematically what cannot continue will not continue, and this is something that's definitely will not continue. All right. So it is 8 o'clock. We're still looking at a picture of the White House. I'm going to sound retarded. It's probably not the White House. Sorry. It's terrible. Terrible. Look, I don't keep up with the politics stuff quite as much. I keep up with the philosophy shit more so. Yeah, Obama's runaway spending is coming due. Imagine my shock. Yeah, it's got more to do with than just Obama. This has been a trend that's been going on for quite some time. We're talking about over a century-old issue that's been slowly just spiraling out of control, and now it's just hitting the little sharp point of the hockey stick on that growth curve. And here we go.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight, President Trump addresses the nation on the continuing impasse over funding for his long-promised border wall. The president will be speaking shortly from the White House, his first primetime speech from the Oval Office. An extraordinary moment.
Here we go.
Of course, it comes in the midst of a partial government shutdown, already the second largest in U.S. history, triggered by the political deadlock over the wall. The shutdown, now in day 18, has left some 800,000 federal workers across the country out of work or working without pay, making them and those who rely on them pawns in an increasingly painful political standoff not of their own making. The president has made immigration his signature issue, but he has been unable to reach consensus on the need for the wall and is considering declaring a national emergency as a way of funding the wall.
Anthony has joined us in the chat. Are you saying the volume needs to go up a little bit, or the volume is up too high?
Democratic leaders Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer will be responding to the president tonight. We will be carrying that live as well. Border security is a complicated,
and that's some bullshit. They felt like the president had to speak, so Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer had to speak as well.
Our team of correspondents will be watching closely.
All right, I'll get your volume up.
Their analysis and expertise. But right now, here's the president.
Is that better?
My fellow Americans, tonight I am speaking to you because there is a growing humanitarian and security crisis at our southern border. Every day, Customs and Border Patrol agents encounter thousands of illegal immigrants trying to enter our country. We are out of space to hold them, and we have no way to promptly return them back home to their country. America proudly welcomes millions of lawful immigrants who enrich our society and contribute to our nation. But all Americans are hurt by uncontrolled illegal migration. It strains public resources and drives down jobs and wages. Among those hardest hit are African Americans and Hispanic Americans. Our southern border is a pipeline for vast quantities of illegal drugs, including meth, heroin, cocaine, and fentanyl. Every week, 300 of our citizens are killed by heroin alone, 90% of which floods across from our southern border. More Americans will die from drugs this year than were killed in the entire Vietnam War. In the last 2 years, ICE officers made 266,000 arrests of aliens with criminal records, including those charged or convicted of 100,000 assaults, 30,000 sex crimes, and 4,000 violent killings. Over the years, thousands of Americans have been brutally killed by those who illegally entered our country, and thousands more lives will be lost if we don't act right now. This is a humanitarian crisis, a crisis of the heart and a crisis of the soul. Last month, 20,000 migrant children were illegally brought into the United States, a dramatic increase. These children are used as human pawns by vicious coyotes and ruthless gangs. 1 in 3 women are sexually assaulted on the dangerous trek up through Mexico. Women and children are the biggest victims, by far, of our broken system. This is the tragic reality of illegal immigration on our southern border. This is the cycle of human suffering that I am determined to end. My administration has presented Congress with a detailed proposal to secure the border and stop the criminal gangs, drug smugglers, and human traffickers. It's a tremendous problem. Our proposal was developed by law enforcement professionals and border agents at the Department of Homeland Security. These are the resources they have requested to properly perform their mission and keep America safe, in fact, safer than ever before. The proposal from Homeland Security includes cutting-edge technology for detecting drugs, weapons, illegal contraband, and many other things. We have requested more agents, immigration judges, and bed space to process the sharp rise in unlawful migration fueled by our very strong economy. Our plan also contains an urgent request for humanitarian assistance and medical support. Furthermore, we have asked Congress to close border security loopholes so that illegal immigrant children can be safely and humanely returned back home. Finally, as part of an overall approach to border security, law enforcement professionals have requested $5.7 billion for a physical barrier. At the request of Democrats, it will be a steel barrier rather than a concrete wall. This barrier is absolutely critical to border security. It's also what our professionals at the border want and need. This is just common sense. The border wall would very quickly pay for itself. The cost of illegal drugs exceeds $500 billion a year, vastly more than the $5.7 billion we have requested from Congress. The wall will also be paid for indirectly by the great new trade deal we have made with Mexico. Senator Chuck Schumer, who you will be hearing from later tonight, has repeatedly supported a physical barrier in the past, along with many other Democrats. They changed their mind only after I was elected president.
Called him out.
Democrats in Congress have refused to acknowledge the crisis. And they have refused to provide our brave border agents with the tools they desperately need to protect our families and our nation.
Wonder what old Chucky Schumer's got to say about that.
Remains shut down for one reason, and one reason only, because Democrats will not fund border security. My administration is doing everything in our power to help those impacted by the situation. But the only solution is for Democrats to pass a spending bill that defends our borders and reopens the government.
Wrong.
This situation could be solved in a 45-minute meeting. I have invited congressional leadership to the White House tomorrow to get this done. Hopefully, we can rise above partisan politics in order to support national security. Some have suggested a barrier is immoral. Then why do wealthy politicians build walls, fences, and gates around their homes? They don't build walls because they hate the people on the outside, but because they love the people on the inside. The only thing that is immoral is the politicians to do nothing and continue to allow more innocent people to be so horribly victimized. America's heart broke the day after Christmas when a young police officer in California was savagely murdered in cold blood by an illegal alien who just came across the border. The life of an American hero was stolen by someone who had no right to be in our country. Day after day, precious lives are cut short by those who have violated our borders. In California, an Air Force veteran was raped, murdered, and beaten to death with a hammer by an illegal alien with a long criminal history. In Georgia, an illegal alien was recently charged with murder for killing, beheading, and dismembering his neighbor. In Maryland, MS-13 gang members who arrived in the United States as unaccompanied minors were arrested and charged last year after viciously stabbing and beating a 16-year-old girl. Over the last several years, I've met with dozens of families whose loved ones were stolen by illegal immigration. I've held the hands of the weeping mothers and embraced the grief-stricken fathers. So sad, so terrible. I will never forget the pain in their eyes, the tremble in their voices, and the sadness gripping their souls. How much more American blood must we shed before Congress does its job? To those who refuse to compromise in the name of border security, I would ask, imagine if it was your child, your husband, or your wife whose life was so cruelly shattered and totally broken. To every member of Congress, pass a bill that ends this crisis. To every citizen, call Congress and tell them to finally, after all of these decades, secure our border. This is a choice between right and wrong, justice and injustice. This is about whether we fulfill our sacred duty to the American citizens we serve. When I took the oath of office, I swore to protect our country, and that is what I will always do. So help me God. Thank you and good night.
President Trump live from the Oval Office with about address as promised, making arguments that have become quite familiar in his support for a wall, or as he now says, a steel barrier on the southern border. The president,
boy, that was short and sweet right there.
Some of the dubious claims he's made in the past.
I was definitely expecting that to be a little bit longer for sure. That's crazy. At any rate, let's see. So the swamp cleaner says Trump is asking to give the Dems what they want, but they must meet him halfway. $55 billion. Gotcha. Not $5 billion for a wall. Yeah, I mean, it's a negotiation. I get it. It's going to be a negotiation all the way. I think it's hilarious that he sat there and called out Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer in the midst of all this, and went ahead and just basically set it up for them. So when they go to speak, I'm just curious what they're going to say now. So let's continue playing here, and
including the idea that Mexico
border, when he was trying to use the fear of crime, he was used various phrases like he did tonight. You know, how much more blood has to be shed.
Oh, you mean kind of like you guys do when you're sitting there talking about all the poor immigrants that are coming up across the border down there, using emotion to try to get people on your side? No. Can't believe Trump would do that.
Really would try to put it in very visual, stark terms. And as we now know, that had no impact there. So I am a bit surprised that...
Wait, it had no impact? How does he possibly know that? He literally just finished talking.
This speech is just essentially a rewritten version of that stump speech, but without the, without the sort of the fiery rhetoric. And then it was, I would say, probably the most, he made a lot of dubious claims. One of the more dubious on the political front was the claim that he made about when he said, and finally I want a physical barrier, and at the request of the Democrats, it's no longer a concrete wall, it's steel. I don't know how many Democrats would line up and say, oh yes, no, they said, sure, have your wall as long as it's steel and not concrete.
So dubious.
Some of this back and forth, Lester, is about semantics, right? Some of this is about, the irony here is what the president outlined. Democrats would support 90% of what he outlined. It's just simply that physical barrier part where it's the sticking point.
It's the one
and I
thing.
think that's where we're stuck. We're stuck on semantics.
We're a few minutes away from the Democratic response, but let me bring in our chief White House correspondent, Hallie Jackson, who's
if
been
Trump
watching
doesn't get
this
that,
with
the
us.
reason this wall
Hallie,
is so freaking important to
the president said he would
people.
proudly own a government shutdown.
The whole reason this whole wall is so important to them right now is because they know damn well if he doesn't get this wall, it's going to mean really, it's going to be quite the challenge for him to be elected.
What's the thinking there?
Coming up in the future, it's going to be really hard for him to be elected for a second term if he's not able to get the wall. And this is like coming down to the last minute. Like this should have been addressed a year ago, but no, we're coming in the last possible minute at the 11th hour, and we're gonna go ahead and try to get this wall passed like right now. Like you guys got to be. Anyway, so I'm looking at the amounts of money spent on all the other things. It's ridiculous. $5 billion isn't shit. It ain't got anything to do with the money. It's got to do with the symbol that the wall represents. That's all this has to do with. The wall itself doesn't do shit. I mean, yeah, if it's in the control of the right people, if the right people are in power, yeah, the wall would do its job. But the second the Democrats get into power, and inevitably it's coming, the Democrats will be in power eventually. That wall ain't going to do shit. It's going to be completely pointless. It's going to be completely redundant. There's going to be no reason for it. They'll go ahead and do what they're going to do anyway. All right, here we go. Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi.
Much of what we heard from President Trump throughout this senseless shutdown has been full of misinformation and even malice. The president has chosen fear. We want to start with the facts. The fact is, on the very first day of this Congress, House Democrats passed Senate Republican legislation to reopen government and fund smart, effective border security solutions. But the president is rejecting these bipartisan bills which would reopen government over his obsession with forcing American taxpayers to waste billions of dollars on an expensive and ineffective wall, a wall he always promised Mexico would pay for.
First of all, does this bitch ever blink? Holy shit.
Fact is, President Trump has chosen to hold hostage critical services for the health, safety, and well-being of the American people and withhold the paychecks of 800,000 innocent workers across the nation, many of them veterans. He promised to keep government shut down for months or years, no matter whom it hurts. That's just plain wrong. The fact is, we all agree we need to secure our borders while honoring our values. We can build the infrastructure and roads at our ports of entry. We can install new technology to scan cars and trucks for drugs coming into our nation. We can hire the personnel we need to facilitate trade and immigration at the border.
Or just legalize drugs. There's that.
We can fund more innovation to detect unauthorized crossings. The fact is, the women and children at the border are not a security threat. They are a humanitarian challenge, a challenge that President Trump's own cruel and counterproductive policies have only deepened. And the fact is, President Trump must stop holding the American people hostage, must stop manufacturing a crisis, and must reopen the government. Thank you. Leader Schumer?
Thank you, Speaker Pelosi. My fellow Americans, we address you tonight for one reason only. The President of the United States, having failed to get Mexico to pay for his ineffective, unnecessary border wall, and unable to convince the Congress or the American people to foot the bill, has shut down the government. American democracy doesn't work that way. We don't govern by temper tantrum. No president should pound the table and demand he gets his way, or else the government shuts down.
We don't govern by temper tantrum. How about hashtag Kavanaugh? Let's talk about that, shall we?
Hurting millions of Americans who are treated as leverage. Tonight, and throughout this debate and throughout his presidency, President Trump has appealed to fear, not facts, division, not unity. Make no mistake, Democrats and the president both want stronger border security.
I literally just heard him say, President Trump is using the same tactics that we've been using forever, so don't listen to him. Anyway. Well, that didn't work. Wrong button.
Most presidents have used Oval Office addresses for noble purposes. This president just used the backdrop of the Oval Office to manufacture a crisis. We can secure our border without an ineffective, expensive wall. And we can welcome legal immigrants and refugees without compromising safety and security. The symbol of America should be the Statue of Liberty, not a 30-foot wall. So our suggestion is a simple one. Mr. President, reopen the government and we can work to resolve our differences over border security, but end this shutdown now. Thank you.
That the Democrats' response to the president's remarks. They also not turning over a lot of new territory here, the same arguments we've been hearing from the Democratic side. Let me bring in Casey Hunt. She's been following all this closely and joins us from Capitol Hill. Senator Schumer noted this idea of separating out the shutdown, those issues that they can agree on, from the wall. Is that showing any cracks among Republicans? Are they getting support on that from Republicans?
Yeah, as far as the whole shutdown thing, I've heard Donald Trump talk about how some of the people, or a lot of people, really support him. All these government employees are glad that he's doing it, and then you hear the left talk about, oh well, it turns out that it's actually, Donald Trump says all of them support it, and that's not true. Not all of them. I'm like, Jesus Christ, he never said all of them. Like, come on. But I don't, to be honest, the fact that it's been, 3 weeks now we're going on now, the government's been shut down, non-essential services. I don't know about you, but I have felt zero impact on my life. I mean, yeah, some government employees are having issues with their money at the moment because they're going to get paid. It's not like they're laid off and not going to get paid, period. But, I don't see that same sympathy coming around for people in the private sector who get laid off their jobs all the time. Like, it just doesn't happen. Like, if there's no work to be done, I don't get paid to sit on my ass and wait for the job to come back around. I don't get paid back pay for that missing time. It just doesn't work that way. So why I should feel bad that the people in the government aren't getting paid right now, I'm sorry. I just don't. I have a hard time getting all worked up over that. All right, so trying to catch back up with the comment section here. Harry Swamp Cleaner says, just another one-dimensional argument from Chuck and Nancy. Ricky F says, does anyone else see the strings? To which I responded, I see the hand up their asses. Like, that's just straight up sock puppetry right there. Anthony says, keep it shut down. I agree. Keep it shut down permanently. Like, if they're non-essential services, get rid of them. Quite frankly, I like what I can't remember what the guy's name was. He was filling in for Mark Levin on his radio show. He was talking about how if you look at the actual essential services, at least based on the Constitution, we're talking about 82% of government spending is considered non-essential by that definition. And it's like, if we can get rid of even just a small portion of that, how much money we would save. Okay, so I think that was pre-recorded. That's a good question. I have no idea. It might have been live. I don't know. It didn't really matter either way. The same message was going to go out regardless of whether it was pre-recorded or not. It's not like they had a back and forth, but it might as well have been pre-recorded. I mean, just based on what they said. I mean, there's nothing, absolutely nothing new here that I was hearing between the two people. All I'm hearing is just the same talking points from both sides. Both of them accusing the other one of trying to use fear to get people to see their way of things. That's like the same shit I've been hearing, but I think the only difference is now it's on live TV where a lot more people are going to see both sides of the argument. So maybe there could be some sway toward one way or the other. I don't know. We need less government. Keep it shut down. Yes, I agree. I totally agree. All right. Let's see. Swamp Cleaner. I think the response was previously recorded. Did you see how quick they cut back? I wasn't paying attention, but I couldn't help but notice old Nancy's face there. I don't know. There was something about her face, like she finished talking and then immediately, you know, as she was letting Chuck Schumer talk, her face was like, fuck, I hope I did good. I hope I did good. Like, I don't know. There was something like she was biting her lip a little bit. You might go back and watch that and see if you saw what I saw there. Anthony says pay the government employees, but I assume he means not the politicians. Yeah, you know, they could do without. I don't know about that. I think the government employees also need a healthy lesson in private markets. I know this isn't quite exactly the same thing and analogous to a private market, but it does kind of go into the whole, like it's actually what we experience every day. I mean, if something happens and some new invention comes around and all of a sudden the product the little trinket that you're manufacturing is obsolete, guess what? You lost your job. You're not just going to get laid off until you can find another one. I mean, you're getting unemployment, but that's not quite the same thing. I'm going to say Ricky F says if we cut it all back as it should be, we would probably not be in supreme debt. Yeah, that's interesting. I think if we cut back a lot, it's not going to matter. What's on the actual government rolls as far as what we're spending nationally is nowhere near what our actual liability is. You hear the term unfunded liabilities all the time. It's something else. Anthony, yes, I can bring you live. Just call me in on the Skype channel on Unframe of Mind. Send me a call. I'll bring you in. So with that being said, yeah, there's a shit ton of unfunded liabilities that's going on right now that there's just absolutely no way we're going to pay back, no matter what, mathematically. And I think we've already hit this point. We've headed over a point, or at least we're very, very close to a point where the amount of debt we owe is more, like the interest on the debt is more than what we can pay in a yearly. It's not manageable at all. Nancy Pelosi looks like Skeletor from He-Man. Dude, that is a perfect reference. I think we need to have somebody Photoshop that one up if it hasn't already been done. That's fantastic. Oh, hey, let's see. I'm going to bring in Anthony. I guess I could call him. We'll bring in old Anthony here. I'm calling him. He's not answering just yet, so we'll see what we can come up with. At any rate, yeah, Skeletor from He-Man. Man, I haven't seen that show for so long. That's a great comparison. No, I was sitting here thinking about this. The more I think about this, the more I'm thinking the wall is a fucking terrible idea. Fucking terrible idea. And I mean that. Oh, guess he's not coming in. I'm trying to call him in. All right. Well, we'll figure that out. If he answers, he'll answer. If he calls back, whatever. We'll get it figured out. At any rate, yeah. Oh, you're on there. Oh, I'm trying to call you, homie. I'm trying to call you. I see your name. Anyway, so I think the wall is a terrible idea, and the part of the reason is because if, like I said before in the stream, if as long as the Republicans are in power, it might be a good idea. I don't know. Hey, we got an Anthony. Let's bring him on in. What's up, Anthony?
Hey, what's going
that
on,
volume
man?
is loud.
All right.
Let me see if I can get you on the stream here. Well, let's see. I don't see you, of course. I'll tell you what. You're just gonna have to talk. We can hear you over the stream, so
Okay. So, what are your thoughts on all this? Because to me, it just sounds like two old hags just not happy with Trump at all. It doesn't seem like anything that he does it's really going to make a difference at this point. I mean, I think that everybody that works for the government wants to go back to work. What I was suggesting earlier is not pay the politicians, but pay the employees. I mean, I don't understand why Chuck and Nancy both have supported um, legal immigration and border walls and policies, but yet when it's come to Trump, this is just not ideal. This is not what they're wanting to do now. I don't understand why they're willing to give another additional $12 billion on top of the $55 billion that's already been approved, but yet zero towards funding, the wall and border security for us Americans. It doesn't make any sense to me at all. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, it would make more sense if you didn't have this preconceived notion that they actually give a shit about the American public, wouldn't it?
Well,
I mean that's kind of a prerequisite for making logical decisions, right? I mean, that would make more sense, wouldn't it?
no, I mean, yeah, it would, but unfortunately, it's just, I can't wrap my head around it. And this is part of the reasons why I tell people all the time, they're wanting to play politics with people's lives. And coming from the Democratic side of things, it's one of the reasons why I left the Democratic Party and became a Republican. I believe what Trump is trying to do is offer security for the American people. I don't think that's a bad idea. This is something that's been talked about in many addresses by former and for past presidents, that this needed to be taken care of. You go back and you look at the Obama speech that was addressed to Congress, Clinton. I mean, if you want to go that far back, so this isn't anything new. It just so happens to be that it's Trump. Nobody likes him because he doesn't fit the narrative of your typical politician.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
That's what it boils down to.
It's all got to do with what's politically expedient at the time. I mean, you can read Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged to kind of get a little idea about this whole thing, but it's just whatever is politically expedient. That's what people will sit there and push for. As far as our politicians go, they don't really care about anything except just more power. I mean, that's literally the only thing they're there for. Yeah, there might be a few politicians that are there to try to, make the world a better place, but at some point they're all bought off, every one of them. I mean, you can ask anybody. you kind of know this inherently, but I don't know. This is just something that's the new big drama. It's the what's it called, the soap opera show right now, and this is the big divide right now is between the Republicans, the Democrats are fighting over this wall versus no wall, and really the wall itself has no bearing in anything. The wall itself is just a symbol. The wall itself isn't going to do shit. I mean, depending on who. I mean, yeah, walls work, but I mean that depends on who's got control of the gate.
But no, it does. But then also, when you see situations like this, it makes you almost kind of wonder how much of their policies that they've presented to the American people in the past was just to gain votes, or to even, to gain bipartisanship from the Republicans back when the Democrats held office. So it almost seems like to me this was blowing smoke up, the asses of the American people in the past and telling folks what they wanted to hear, but never actually followed through with it. Now you have a president that's willing to follow through with something, and they're kind of not knowing what to do. When essentially, to me, it seems anyways, back then that was never the idea, was to have the goal of them to actually protect the American people. That's what it boils down to.
Well, they say that. They say that. It's just words, man. I mean, until you actually see action, it's all just words, every bit of it. I mean, how do we know that they're not just going against the wall now for the same reason they were going for the wall before? Like you said before, they were going for the wall for the purpose of getting more Republicans on their side or whatever. They were trying to kind of sway the Republican vote. I mean, we know about as much as their words aren't worth shit. We know that everything they say could be just for that. They're just trying to get votes. And 9 times out of 10, that's exactly what's going on right now. The open borders, the let the immigrants in, the whole narrative on the left is super appealing to people on the left. So obviously the people that are running as the politicians, they're going to want to appeal to that, and they're going to want to fight tooth and nail for that, because if they're seen giving into this wall even a little bit, they're going to be seen as weak, and they risk losing office. Same thing on the other side. That's why this has become a political focal point for both sides. A symbol.
Well, and I think that if it wasn't such an issue back then, when politicians were making that claim that immigration must have been addressed, and then yet it was really never addressed, and it was almost kind of forgotten about throughout.
It did get
years as
forbidden.
a politician.
Actually, Michael Rhodes in the comment sections made a good point. Said they've already approved $100 billion over 2 to 3 occasions, and it never got built. Like, and this is pretty common knowledge for anybody who's paying attention. Like the approval for this structure to be built on the southern border has been a big issue with the American people for a long time, and it's just not getting done. People, they have no interest in actually doing what the American people want. Although I'm really curious why they wouldn't want a wall, because if the ultimate goal really is power, wouldn't you want a wall to be able to keep your fucking people in? Like, or maybe that's just too obvious.
Well, no, because as long as you got the foreign aids going to other countries, that keeps your ties to, for other things such as military and, and what, and obviously when it comes to trade. So, I think the Democrats are more concerned about taking care of other people in other countries and maintaining those relationships, which is I can understand completely and wholeheartedly. But you also have to wonder at some point, when do you reel back the money when it comes to the foreign aid? I mean, when you're asking for an additional $12 billion, where is it going? Who is it going to, and why? Those are questions that I would be asking the Democratic side as to why they're pushing something like that, especially at that magnitude cost.
Sorry to interrupt, but I quite frankly, I could give a shit where it's going. I'm more as an anarchist interested in a big proponent of freedom and liberty. Is where's the money coming from? That's the big question.
Coming from, and where is it going to?
Well, the reason,
I mean, those are questions that obviously we need to know as Americans, especially if this is coming out of our own pocket. That's something I think we all need to be concerned about. Is if I happen to give somebody a stranger $100, and I'm married, to someone, I think my wife has a right to know where that $100 is
that
going.
suggests that you're giving away your money willingly. When it comes to taxes, you're not. We've discussed this before. No. You're not giving it away willingly. This is more analogous with somebody coming up and mugging you for your 50% of your money, and then you're like, well, okay, but what are you going to be spending it on? I need to know where you're going to be spending that money.
Kind of like
I don't care where he's spending the money.
Or whatever her name is.
I don't care where he's spending the money. All I care is that he stole my money from me. That's not yours. It's not yours. Let's see. Let's go back to the comments. Excuse me for just a second. Let's say so. Kraai says, is there any rules and regulations a national crisis brings that I myself can exploit? I'm not really sure I understand that question. Give me some more detail on that.
Read back up if there's anything that kind of hints around that comment.
No. It's kind of a standalone. Anyway, Michael Rhodes says they need to stop handing out jobs, welfare, and other benefits to illegals also. You know what?
Yeah.
I agree with that, and I actually will take that one step further and say they need to stop handing out welfare to everyone. That's the key issue here, is that we have this welfare state. That's the key issue that's got us in this problem. That's got us in this national debt.
That's how you pay for a border wall.
That's how you pay for a border wall and the actual things we're supposed to pay for. That's how you keep people from immigrating. That's how you make it arranged so you don't even need a damn border wall, because people have no incentive to come here in the first fucking place. Sorry. Anyway, he goes on to say, don't go saying it doesn't happen, California. It is illegal for the DMV to track immigration statuses. So yeah, they're voting and they're on welfare. There's an entire system in place to help illegals buck the system. Yeah, that's kind of obvious, and it's just going to go ahead and get worse. And as long as they can continue to get the votes of those people, they're going to keep doing it because they benefit. The Democrats benefit from that kind of practice. And as long as they can keep getting away with it, as long as they can keep going against this wall, and trying to stop anything that's going to get in their way of getting more votes in the next upcoming election. They are desperately trying to get the votes they need, because unless something major happens, which I have a sneaking suspicion it might, the Democrats ain't got a shot at winning presidential election in 2020. It's going to take...
So let me ask you real quick. Back when Obama was in office, how long was the government shut down for?
Gosh, I don't even remember. It was a couple weeks, maybe.
16 days. Yeah, it was 16 days. I mean, we're 9 days into this, if I'm not mistaken.
We are 19 days. We're almost at the
19 days.
The record is 21 days, and we're right there close to it. And I don't care. I mean, let it keep going. Let it keep going. I mean,
I've got family that works for the government, so they're not being paid. My sister, She works for the Federal Bureau of Prisons. Obviously, they still have to go to work, but they're not getting paid.
Right.
So I do understand the hardships that it does bring to those who work in government. But again, it's, that was your choice to go into to work for the government. You knew that there was a possibility during government shutdown that you weren't going to get paid.
It's happened multiple times. It's never been this big of a deal. They're making it a bigger deal than it really is. The only reason, like for example, when Obama shut down the government, he sat there and made this whole thing about putting additional people to block the national parks, to keep people from going into the national parks. That costed extra money that they were spending just to make a point, just to make the people on the ground feel the government shutdown. That was done on purpose. In this particular situation, you have I've seen stories of like the Libertarian Party organizing for people to go in and clean up the parks instead. It's like people can come up with solutions. We don't like this. I think that might be a really important lesson we can learn when government's not here. We can handle this. We're big boys and girls. We can handle this. We don't need to have our hands held every damn step of the way. And the longer it goes on, the bigger of a facade people will realize government really is. And I personally hope it goes on.
I hate big government. I hate it.
Indefinitely.
I hate it with a passion. This was one of the reasons why I was saying earlier, I think that there needs to be something put into place where government employees are still paid, but politicians that go through this crap of shutting down the government, those need to be the ones that suffer the most. They need to lose their pay.
The money they make is more from donors anyway. It has take away their pay.
You take the bottom dollar out of their pocket, they're gonna do something. It's the problem is as obviously as if you don't have any money, well, you're gonna figure something out to make that money. You start taking the shit away from the politicians, and you'll see how quick things will change.
All right, homie. Well, I'm going to hop off here. Y'all stay tuned for the live show tomorrow when Anthony will be here in studio for our first live stream of the year. Technically, this is the first one, but this was kind of an impromptu one that I decided to do because of the situation. But as far as our official Wednesday live show, I'll be looking forward to having you back tomorrow. So peace out.
All right, buddy. I'll see you tomorrow night.
Peace out, y'all, and you have a fantastic day. You've been watching the Unframe of Mind show, where we have uncomfortable conversations. If you'd like to join the show, head on over to unframeofmind.com and fill out the little form there, and I will be glad to have you on as a guest. Michael Rhodes, you've been offering a lot of great insight into this comment section. I would be glad to have you on, and we could just have a discussion that doesn't require so much typing and reading. It's a lot smoother that way, if you haven't noticed. And I like a nice, smooth conversation. At any rate, it is 40 minutes past my bedtime, and I've got to go to bed. Y'all have a good night, and thanks for watching. And then watch me fumble around to find this stop button awkwardly. Yep.